They say loyalty is rewarded. 15 years of blood, sweat, and silent sacrifice. I believed it until the moment it shattered beneath my feet. My name is Mark, 8 years old, a corporate strategist who built his company's empire from the ground up. Every late night, every calculated risk, every missed family dinner was supposed to lead me here to the director's chair. But the promotion, it didn't come to me. It went to Kevin. Kevin the flashy, charming newcomer with a smile as smooth as poison and ambition sharper than a knife. He didn't earn it. He stole it. And now I'm left standing in the shadows, watching as everyone applauds him while my future crumbles. But I'm not finished. Not by a long shot. This isn't just about a stolen title. It's about justice, revenge, and a comeback so ruthless, it will shake the foundations of everything we've built. Because sometimes the quietest man in the room is the one who plans the deadliest move. Welcome to my game. I have poured every ounce of my ambition, intellect, and sweat into building a career at Langston & Pierce, a corporate giant in the world of strategic consulting. I wasn't just an employee, I was a cornerstone, quietly holding up the pillars of the company while others basked in the limelight. From my early days as a junior analyst to my current role as a senior strategist, I climbed the ladder with relentless precision. I understood the nuances of the corporate game better than most. While others sought quick wins, I mapped the long game. I sacrificed weekends, family gatherings, even my health for this moment, the coveted promotion to director. It was supposed to be mine. I was the logical choice, the dependable, loyal architect behind every successful campaign. But life, as I learned, has a cruel sense of humor. The day the promotion was announced remains etched in my memory like a scar. The morning began like any other. I arrived at the office early, as usual, my mind buzzing with plans for the new quarter. The air was thick with anticipation. Whispers of the upcoming announcement floated through the hallways. I could feel it, that electric tension that surrounds moments that will change lives. I made my way to the conference room, where the entire senior management team was gathered. The CEO, Mr. Harrington, stood at the front, a smile too practiced to be genuine plastered on his face. My heart raced. This was it. He cleared his throat, and the room fell silent. After careful consideration, the new director of strategic planning will be Kevin Harper. The name hit me like a thunderclap. Kevin Harper, the young, flashy newcomer who joined the firm just a year ago. The man whose polished smile and silver tongue had quickly earned him a reputation as the office's golden boy. Kevin, who had dazzled clients and dazzled the board with charisma, but whose work ethic and experience were nowhere near mine. A murmur of approval rippled through the room. Applause erupted. I forced a smile, clapped politely, but inside, a storm was raging. Kevin's victory was met with glowing congratulations and eager handshakes. Everyone loved the idea of the young, vibrant new leader, yet behind my congratulatory smile lay a coil of bitterness that tightened with every word I forced myself to utter. "Congratulations, Kevin," I said, my voice calm but every syllable laced with quiet venom. "You've earned it." Kevin beamed, completely unaware, or perhaps willfully blind to the war igniting behind my eyes. His charm was his shield, and he wielded it expertly. I watched as he moved through the office, basking in his ill-gotten glory, nodding and laughing with colleagues who, just days ago, had respected me as the inevitable choice. But while the office buzzed with Kevin's success, my mind was already working, calculating my next move. I had no intention of fading into obscurity. No, I would play this game differently, one where I was not just a player, but the one pulling the strings. Feigning acceptance was easy on the surface. I congratulated Kevin publicly, even offered my support as a colleague. I knew better than anyone how dangerous it was to reveal my true feelings too soon. People like Kevin thrived on exposing weakness, and I refused to be that. Yet behind closed doors, the real Mark emerged, the strategist who planned with patience and precision. I began to dig. First, I requested access to old project files and internal reports, a process masked by casual curiosity. But beneath the surface, I was hunting for cracks in Kevin's armor. I called in favors from longtime allies, Rachel from compliance, whose eyes missed nothing, Dev from IT, a quiet genius who knew how to bypass digital barriers, and Clara from legal, a sharp-minded protector of secrets. Together, we formed a quiet network, gathering pieces of a puzzle that the rest of the company ignored. I shadowed Kevin's moves, observing his meetings, noting his partners, his clients, even the late nights he claimed to be working. I watched for inconsistencies, missed deadlines, questionable decisions, unexplained absences. All the while, Kevin grew restless. I noticed the first flickers of paranoia in his eyes, subtle but unmistakable. His confident smile began to falter behind closed doors. It was as if he sensed a predator circling, one that wasn't as docile as he had assumed. But Kevin didn't know who I truly was yet. To him, I was just another face in the crowd, a harmless supporter. Little did he realize that beneath the surface, a storm was gathering, one that would shake the foundations of everything he thought secure. The office buzzed with routine distractions, the hum of computers and low chatter, masking the silent war brewing beneath the surface. To most, it was just another day at Langston and Pierce. But for me, every corner held secrets waiting to be uncovered. I knew I couldn't take on Kevin alone. His web was spun far and wide, and his charm had blinded most to the cracks beneath. If I wanted to expose the truth, I needed allies, those overlooked, underestimated, and often unheard. First, there was Rachel, sharp, no nonsense, and fiercely loyal. She worked in compliance. She was the kind of person who noticed every missing signature, every overlooked report discrepancy. Many dismissed her as a stickler, but I saw her as an invaluable weapon. When I approached her quietly one afternoon, she looked up from her mountain of paperwork with a curious, cautious eye. "I need your eyes on something," I said, lowering my voice. She nodded, understanding the gravity. Without question, Rachel began digging through old audit trails, cross-referencing reports that Kevin had signed off on. Almost immediately, she found inconsistencies, projects marked as completed that had missed critical deadlines, expense reports that didn't add up. Then there was Dev, a genius with technology and the quiet guardian of our company's digital heartbeat. His IT cubicle was a fortress of screens and cables, but beneath his unassuming demeanor was a mind that could pierce through firewalls and digital smokescreens alike. I approached him after hours, explaining my concerns and the need to discreetly access encrypted files and communication logs. Without hesitation, Dev promised to be my eyes and ears in the invisible world of servers and databases. Within days, he uncovered encrypted messages between Kevin and unknown contacts, mysterious meetings scheduled offsite, unexplained file transfers at odd hours. Last was Clara. From legal, a razor-sharp mind with an instinct for secrets, she had seen more corporate battles than anyone else, and I trusted her to navigate the murky waters of board politics and legal loopholes. Together, we reviewed contracts Kevin had signed, searching for loopholes and irregular clauses that could expose more than just negligence. Together, we became a quiet force within the sprawling corporate machine. The whispers began, hushed conversations in break rooms, suspicious glances exchanged near water coolers. Kevin's late-night meetings were no longer secret. Our investigation slowly chipped away at the facade he wore so effortlessly. Yet the deeper we dug, the more tangled the web became. It wasn't just about Kevin's incompetence or arrogance. There were darker forces at play, hidden agendas, unspoken alliances, and a network of power players who preferred the shadows to the light. As Kevin's paranoia grew, so did our resolve. The office that once celebrated his rise now murmured with doubt, and in the silence between cubicles, the whispers of truth began to echo louder, dangerously louder. The deeper we sank into Kevin's world, the clearer it became that the rot went far beyond his polished smile and careless mistakes. The corruption wasn't confined to a single man. It was woven into the very fabric of the company, embedded in the suits that sat atop the boardroom table. It started with Rachel's discovery of irregularities in financial reports. At first glance, they looked like minor errors, easily explained away as clerical oversights, but the pattern was unmistakable. Large sums of money funneled into off-the-books accounts, transactions with no clear recipients, and unexplained investments that lined pockets far from Langston and Pierce's balance sheets. The board of directors, I realized with a sinking heart, was far from the honorable group I'd once admired. Whispers in the hallways hinted at secret deals, agreements made behind closed doors, where favors were exchanged and loyalty bought like currency. One evening, Clara brought me a folder she'd quietly obtained from legal archives, documents that had been flagged but never pursued, contracts with suspicious clauses, sudden changes in partnership agreements, and a trail of emails hinting at quid pro quo arrangements. Someone on the board was pulling strings to ensure Kevin's rise and to keep their own skeletons firmly locked away. It became clear that my rejection was no accident. The promotion I had long expected was not just stolen by Kevin's ambition, it was orchestrated to cover up a much bigger secret. Someone had sacrificed me, the loyal strategist, to keep their own misdeeds hidden. I confronted Rachel in a quiet corner of the office, the weight of the conspiracy heavy in the air. "Do you think they planned this from the start?" I asked. Rachel looked grim. "It's not just a plan, Mark. It's a system. They protect each other, and they'll do anything to keep it that way." The realization hit me hard. I was no longer fighting a single enemy. I was battling an entire corrupt machine, one that fed on betrayal and silence. But even as the truth unfolded, a dangerous question lingered in my mind. How deep did this go? And how far was I willing to go to bring it down? The stakes had grown higher than I imagined. This was no longer about a promotion, it was about survival, justice, and the fate of everything I had built. The files Dev recovered came wrapped in layers of digital encryption, a challenge even for his expert hands. But when he finally broke through, what lay beneath was more than just data. It was a bombshell that shattered every assumption I'd made. The name Kevin was a fabrication, a carefully constructed identity forged with precision, complete with falsified educational records, fake references, and a paper trail designed to withstand even the closest scrutiny. Dev's voice was steady but laced with disbelief as he showed me the documents. "This guy doesn't exist, not really. Everything about him is a lie." I sat back, stunned. The man who had stolen my promotion, who had charmed the entire office, was nothing more than a ghost. But the implications were worse than I imagined. Kevin was an agent, a mole planted by a rival conglomerate, tasked with infiltrating Langston and Pierce and destabilizing it from within. His promotion wasn't just a coup for personal gain. It was a strategic move in a corporate war far bigger than I'd ever dreamed. I felt a cold surge of anger mixed with betrayal. Not only had I been robbed of my rightful place, but my company had been used as a battlefield in a shadow war that threatened everything I cared about. As I stared at the forged papers, I realized the depth of the deception. Kevin's entire persona was a mask, one that hid ruthless ambition and deadly intent. The charm, the confidence, the well-timed smiles. All tools in a carefully crafted act designed to disarm and destroy. I couldn't help but wonder, how many others were watching from the shadows? How deep did this conspiracy run? But there was no turning back. Knowing Kevin's true identity changed everything. I wasn't just fighting to reclaim my career. I was fighting to save the company from a saboteur who had already burrowed deep into its heart. I steeled myself. If Kevin was a ghost, then I had to become a hunter. The discovery Clara made sent a chill down my spine, proof that the promotion Kevin had stolen wasn't just the result of cunning or bribery, but of a darker, more dangerous power, blackmail. In a hidden folder deep inside the company's legal server, Clara uncovered a voice recording damning evidence of Kevin using secrets as weapons. The tape was grainy, the voices tense, but the message was crystal clear. Kevin was threatening a high-ranking board member with the exposure of a long-buried scandal, one that could unravel years of carefully constructed reputations and alliances. I pressed my ear closer as Clara played the recording. Kevin's voice was calm, almost chilling, as he laid out his demands. Silence in exchange for silence. The board member's compliance was bought with fear, not loyalty. It was no surprise the promotion wasn't earned, it was bought with a price paid in secrets and threats. But this was bigger than Kevin. The scandal was not just a footnote in company history, it involved cover-ups that implicated some of the most powerful people in the building. If these secrets got out, it could bring down the entire board and destroy the company's fragile facade of respectability. I felt the weight of the situation crush down on me. Revealing this would be like opening a floodgate. Once the water started to pour, there was no telling how much damage it would cause. Innocent people might get caught in the crossfire. The company could crumble under the scandal, and my own future could be dragged down with it. Clara looked at me, her expression grave. "This isn't just about Kevin anymore, Mark. If we expose this, there's no turning back." The line between justice and ruin blurred. I could see the path clearly now. If I wanted to reclaim what was mine and save the company, I had to play a dangerous game, balancing truth against destruction. And Kevin's blackmail web was the key. Just as I was gearing up to expose Kevin and the rotten core of the board, an ominous message arrived, silent, but loud enough to freeze my blood. It came without a sender, no return address, no name, just a simple note slipped under my office door. You bring him down, we bring you down. The words echoed in my mind, heavy with threat and meaning. Someone powerful was watching, someone who knew about my plans and, more dangerously, knew about my past. For years, I'd buried the mistakes and shortcuts I'd taken during the company's toughest times, those late nights when survival meant bending rules, the discreet deals made to keep my team afloat, the compromises that no one ever spoke of. I thought those shadows were long gone, but apparently someone had been keeping tabs. The message wasn't just a warning, it was a promise of retaliation. I sat at my desk, staring at the note, my mind racing. This wasn't just about Kevin anymore. There was a hidden player in this game, someone who wanted to keep the board's secret safe no matter the cost, and was willing to burn anyone who stood in their way. Rachel called me later that evening, her voice low with concern. Mark, whoever sent that message, they know about your past. If they have that kind of dirt, you're vulnerable. I knew she was right, but backing down wasn't an option. If I retreated now, everything I'd uncovered would be lost, and Kevin would continue to tear the company apart. I had to prepare for the battle ahead, but also protect myself from the unseen enemy who held my secrets like a loaded gun. The betrayal cut deeper than I expected. Not only was I fighting a mole and a corrupt board, but also ghosts from my own history, ghosts ready to strike when I least expected. And as I looked out of my office window into the city lights, I realized the game was no longer just about the company. It was about survival. The company gala was more than just a celebration. It was a battlefield dressed in silk and crystal chandeliers. The city's elite mingled beneath the sparkling lights, oblivious to the storm gathering quietly behind polished smiles. I had spent weeks planning this night, every detail crafted like a chess move. The key players, the board members, investors, and Kevin himself would all be under one roof. This was the perfect stage for the revelation that could topple the house of cards, but the tension was palpable. Clara's discovery earlier that day unsettled me. Someone close to me, someone I trusted, might be feeding information back to Kevin. A leak inside my circle threatened to unravel everything. As I stood near the grand entrance, watching the guests arrive in tuxedos and gowns, I felt the weight of every eye on me. I was no longer just the sideline strategist. Tonight I would be the hunter. Kevin arrived fashionably late, his usual confident grin firmly in place. But behind his polished facade, I sensed the slightest flicker of unease. He scanned the room warily, a subtle change from his normally carefree demeanor. I caught Rachel's eye across the room. She gave me a barely perceptible nod, our signal that everything was in place. The evening unfolded like a slow dance of words and veiled threats. Kevin flitted between investors, laughing too loudly, flattering too obviously, desperate to maintain control. Meanwhile, Dev and Clara moved stealthily behind the scenes, coordinating with the IT and legal teams to ensure the evidence was secure and ready for the moment. As the gala reached its peak, I requested the CEO's attention under the pretext of a new strategic proposal. With a subtle nod, the lights dimmed, and the giant screen behind me flickered to life. The room fell silent as footage began to play. Clandestine meetings, wire transfers, and Kevin's forged documents. Gasps and whispers rippled through the crowd. Kevin's mask began to crack. His composure faltered as the screen showed the evidence of his double life, the blackmail that secured his ascent. But then the unexpected happened. Clara's phone buzzed in her clutch, a message from an unknown source, warning that the leak was more dangerous than we feared. Someone was actively working to sabotage the reveal. I realized the trap was not just for Kevin, it was set for me as well. With the eyes of the company upon us, the next move had to be flawless. The boardroom was a fortress of polished wood and glass, suffused with the heavy tension of a verdict long overdue. The air was thick with whispered speculation as the executives took their seats, eyes darting nervously toward the man in the center of the storm, Kevin. I stood at the head of the table, a USB drive clenched tightly in my hand, the silent weapon that would either save the company or destroy us all. With a steady voice, I pressed play. The large screen flickered to life, projecting the damning footage we'd painstakingly gathered. Secret meetings in shadowy corners, offshore wire transfers that spoke of corruption and greed, and then, the final, most damning proof, Kevin's forged identity documents, exposing him as not who he claimed to be, but a double agent working for a rival firm. Kevin's face contorted with rage as the room erupted in murmurs. He slammed his fist on the table, his voice sharp and desperate. "Mark, this is slander. You have no proof beyond hearsay." But the silence that followed was his undoing. The evidence spoke louder than his protests. Just as Kevin stormed out in fury, the unexpected sound of sirens pierced the tense air. 2 officers strode in, badges flashing. The room fell into stunned silence. "Kevin Michelson, you're under arrest for corporate espionage and fraud," one officer announced. The room gasped. The man who'd once charmed his way to the top was now shackled by the truth. But the shocks weren't over. As the officers led Kevin away, Rachel stepped forward with an additional revelation. Kevin was using not one, but 2 identities. Both are wanted by law enforcement. The board members exchanged glances, the weight of betrayal settling over them like a suffocating fog. I finally allowed myself a breath, knowing the first battle had been won. Yet, beneath the surface, a new war was already brewing. Weeks had passed since Kevin's dramatic fall. The dust was still settling, but the company breathed a tentative sigh of relief. I wasn't just director anymore. I was interim CEO, the reluctant new captain of a ship, still navigating treacherous waters. As I walked into my new office for the first time, the heavy oak door closing behind me echoed like a final seal on an old chapter. The skyline stretched beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, a city of endless possibilities and silent threats. I took a moment, letting the gravity of my new role settle over me. This was the moment I had fought for, sacrificed for. The weight of responsibility pressed down, but for once, it felt deserved. Then my eyes caught something out of place on the sleek glass desk. A plain, unmarked envelope. Curiosity warred with caution as I reached for it. The paper was thick, expensive, and cold to the touch. Inside lay a single photograph, grainy but unmistakable. It was a picture of me, meeting with a shadowy figure months ago in a dimly lit cafe. A handshake caught mid-motion, faces partially obscured, something I had thought was discreet. Off the record, something I never wanted to see the light of day. A chill crept down my spine. The past I had tried so hard to bury was reaching out, refusing to be forgotten. The note that accompanied the photo was brief, almost casual. "Everyone has secrets, Mark. How far will you go to protect yours?" As I stared out at the city, the smile I wore was tight, almost a grimace. The game wasn't over. In fact, it had only just begun. The throne I'd claimed was precarious, built not just on truth, but on shadows and bargains. And now someone was watching, waiting for me to make my next move. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more real-life stories of liberation and justice.